Good evening, everyone. I'll open this Committee of the Whole meeting, or call it to order, here at 6 o'clock in council chambers. Do not have any remote electronic attendance today. So we begin with board appointments. Mayor's appointment of Jeff Adamson to the Historic Preservation Commission to fill the unexpired term of Craig Mack to expire April 30th, 2024. I just realized I'm continuing a habit of appointing people who live there next to each other by randomly. I did that on the planning commission, and now I'm doing it here. In any case. And after that, we move to our presentation, Thriving Neighborhoods Program. Janelle, please, from MCDC. All right.
Hi, Alexandra Elias, representing Renew Moline. I just wanted to give you a brief introduction. As you may recall, Moline Community Development Corporation has really come under Renew Moline's umbrella, organizationally anyway. They are still a separate entity, have their own board, and have really outlined a great strategic plan under Janelle's direction, and are really making great strides toward establishing a really robust program. I wanted to be here today to tell you why Moline neighborhoods are important to Renew Moline. As you know, we've been around for 34 years, and our evolution as an organization has changed from really helping deer dispose of major tracts of land to really infilling, making sure that our communities and our neighborhoods are well supported and vibrant. And so that's really the direction of our work. So we were pleased to have the opportunity to partner with the Moline Community Development Corporation Board of Directors. We are looking forward to great things, including expanding Renew Moline's interest in affordable housing. So I think there are really some opportunities there to try to work on the housing shortage in all income categories that we have in our community. So that's Renew Moline's board interest. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, both to support Janelle and MCTC board, and to be with you all. So thank you very much.
Alrighty, hello, and I am Janelle, and am I in charge of making the slides run? Okay. Cool. You have a good tech team, it works. So I am Janelle Schwanier. I won't quiz you on how to say that later, it's okay. But I am here to tell you about the Thriving Neighborhoods Program. As Alex mentioned, we've been working kind of under the umbrella of Renew Moline since I started here in December. We've sort of been refocusing the organization and trying to determine where are we headed next. So one of the directions that we are hoping to head next is to work with the city on what we've dubbed the Thriving Neighborhoods Program. So I just have a couple of slides because I'm a visual learner, so I like it when at least there's something to look at on the screen. So just background in case anyone's not really familiar with our organization, because most people aren't. We're very tiny, and we've worked on projects with the city for many years, but recently it's kind of been in a lull. So we were founded in 2008. The intention was to be a nonprofit partner for the city, kind of like Renew is, that we can work on slightly different projects. We can maybe seek out different grant funding, that type of thing, to hopefully work on complementary projects. We've done things like renovating foreclosed homes, updating parks throughout the city, and working with our neighborhood associations. And the city was generous enough to include us in the ARPA funding from last year, so that is part of why I'm able to be here and working with our board to help refocus, like I mentioned. So the idea with the Thriving Neighborhoods Program, it was developed in cooperation with city staff. So from the Community and Economic Development Department, we've been looking at how can we complement what they are already working on, the programs that they already have that are successful. We felt like what we're working on would address two of the strategic pillars that are in your strategic plan. And like I said, we're hoping to complement, not duplicate what the city is already working on. So the program goals, and this should have been in the packet you received. The full document is a couple of pages long. There's a preface and everything, but it boils down to three main goals. So we've got create meaningful neighborhood identities, improve the physical environments in the neighborhoods, and support strong neighborhood associations by and for the residents. So it's, as you can see, thriving neighborhoods, that's what we're trying to work on. Is we have right now a list of 6 neighborhoods that we currently work with in our existing board of directors. So we're looking at initially working with those neighborhoods to develop some of these projects, and then hopefully helping to expand and either revive some of the other neighborhood associations that existed in the past but maybe aren't active any longer, or hoping to organize some new neighborhoods so that the people who are living in the neighborhoods feel empowered to tackle problems themselves, or they know who at the city to bring them to, and we can help to facilitate some of that communication. So these are the initial neighborhoods, like I said, that we're already working with. So a lot of them you will notice it's pretty much in the kind of the older area of town, just up the hill and kind of in that direction from downtown, but we're hoping to expand to some other parts of Moline as well. Yep, like I said, we're building on work that's already been done, enhancing the existing neighborhood identities. We're not coming in and we're not assuming these neighborhoods don't already have identities. You know, many of them have been working with MCDC and with the city for a long time. They have existing active neighborhood associations, so they have an identity to some extent. We're hoping to help them enhance that, to look at, are there other physical features that we could put in the neighborhood that would help to build that neighborhood pride, to be a rallying point, collecting input on the needs, what people are hoping to see improved or expanded. And like I said, some of those projects, it might make more sense for us to spearhead it. Some of it might make more sense for the city to spearhead it, but keeping that conversation open so that we can help to facilitate that. And providing tools and opportunities for residents to help themselves, which, you know, you don't want to be in a model where we are trying to solve all problems for all people. The city can't solve all problems for all people because there are a lot of things to do and a limited number of resources to do them. So empowering people with knowledge, with tools, with the information of how to submit their needs to the city. So you've got a more detailed timeline again in the documents that were in your packet. There's even actually I kind of think it's a cool timeline and chart that's in there that this, I'll give credit where credit's due. KJ Whitley created this document and we worked on it together to kind of lay out when different things, when it made sense for them to happen. And that would be for the rest of this year and then going through next year, and then we can reassess and see how's it going. You know, what are the needs from your end? How can we help? And what do we want to see happen in the future? So that's about it. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have or provide any other information.
Does council have questions?
Can I comment?
Yes, please, Mr. Vita.
Yeah, I would just like to interject. I mean, we took a leap of faith a year ago, and 2 years ago, actually, MCDC was just basically, they were losing their executive director who was part-time, and most people didn't realize that, but she was well-liked. She did good work, but she moved on. She retired, and that was the end of that. And so they became kind of lost out there, and they had done some great work with the city. And the question then became is, you know, where do we go with our housing programs, which are a major priority in this city? One of the first things I noticed 2 years ago is that we've got a lot of great neighborhoods with a lot of identity, you know, and yet unless you know they're there, you don't know they're there. You have to know. So it becomes about this identification. There were efforts to do that. You know, you can see that in the bluffs. You can see it in the overlook. There's little signs that are sitting on top of street signs, but not every street sign, that kind of give you a sense of identity and maybe a sense of community pride. So, you know, where MCDC is now, because I think really it's the work that Janelle did. I mean, Janelle was brought on thanks to ARPA, thanks to the Renew Moline board directors for accepting that responsibility and oversight. But we started to move and consolidate and move in a different direction, not only with MCDC, but also with Moline Center. And today, those are all domiciled out of Renew, you know, thanks to the council agreeing to that and Renew's board accepting that responsibility, and then the allocation of funding to make it happen. So we basically are doing in Moline what other cities are having perhaps the chamber do elsewhere. And we're doing it, I think, very cost effectively. So I want to compliment Janelle for her work up until this point, not just this presentation, but the document itself. It clearly gives guidance to an association that was fledgling out there for a period of almost a year. So my compliments and kudos to the work of MCDC and Renew Moline, especially yourself, and with KJ's help, of course. So thank you. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you for presenting this evening. If there's nothing further from the council, I encourage you to go to the new and improved Facebook page to stay in touch, especially those of you that have wards or your wards cover these neighborhood associations.
And we'll have a new website in about a week and a half, which I'm very excited about. So don't look at the website right now. Facebook, yes, website, not yet.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Janelle. All right, we move to 4.2, GFOA's Distinguished Budget Award. Ms. Barnes.
Carol will not be
will not.
joining us this
Okay.
evening. She's ill, so I can do an introductory remark, and then we'll
Okay.
have Lori pick up from there.
Okay.
And with us tonight, we have Lori Oloa, and we have Courtney and Keith, our illustrious finance team, who have created what I am very proud to say is the second year in a row, last year being the first, this year being the second, that the Government Finance Officers Association recognized the outstanding work of the city, and in particular the city's finance department, in preparing an illustrative budget that is designed specifically to communicate with the public. That's what it's designed for. It's not the line items. That's what we work with every day. This is an illustrative budget that demonstrates to the public that we are, one, not only transparent, two, we are accountable, and it gives them a clear picture of what this city is doing with their tax dollars across all the funds. So with that, I'm going to turn it, and I want to congratulate the finance team and Carol as well for her leadership, and those who are present tonight for outstanding work. There's no other way to say it. Not many cities reach this level of financial reporting ever, nor do they even pursue it. So the fact that you pursue it, and you pursue it in the midst of an audit that's ongoing and day-to-day operations, and you still deliver a result, is just short of remarkable. So my compliments.
So,
Go ahead.
somebody gonna take a picture, it looks like they got.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll
We just
take a
wanted,
picture.
we just wanted to say thank you for supporting in this endeavor all the mayor and council and administration, as well as all of the departments who provide a lot of the information that's in this book. And then we wanted to have a special thank you to Courtney here, because she actually took charge when we gather all the information together from different places and different types, from charts to Word documents to pictures, and she puts it all together and makes it look beautiful and organizes it so well that we can do it without her.
Where would we be without Courtney?
Congratulations, and thank you for all of that hard work, all of you. Barry, you're gonna get something for this?
You want to
Oh,
read the
thank
certificate,
you.
Mayor?
I will read the certificate. Certificate of recognition for budget preparation to the city of Moline, Illinois. The certificate of recognition for budget preparation is presented by the Government Finance Officers Association to those individuals who have been instrumental in their government unit achieving a distinguished budget presentation award. There you go. I didn't do anything. I'll get out of the way and you take a picture of that.
I'll give that back to them.
All right, public comment. Is there public comment this evening? Yes, Ms. Elias?
I am speaking on the historic preservation ordinance proposal. Shall I wait till that item? Or,
Oh, go ahead.
okay. Alexandra Elias, representing Renew Moline. As you know, I'm sorry.
Just pull
Mike,
that mic
Mike,
up.
Mike.
I can't.
There you go. Oh.
As you know, Renew Moline owns the JCPenney building that we are working on a redevelopment plan for. It's built in 1956. It is in a National Register commercial district. The ordinance that's before you this evening, at least the way I'm reading it tonight, would not apply to this, but I'm not 100% sure about that, only because we're not proposing demolition at this point. The ordinance does appear to apply to structures that would not normally require a certificate of appropriateness, which to me says that they've already gone through some element of review and thus do not need any further review. So my two observations on the ordinance this evening are, one, you're capturing a whole bunch of potentially historic resources that aren't really accounted for yet. I'm not sure how big that number is in terms of the number of structures we're talking about. But I will tell you that the resources for developing historic buildings are very slim in Illinois. We don't have a very robust state program for historic tax credits. There are other ways, of course, to get renovation done, but they're all very expensive. And I'm speaking to you as a person who owns 9 individual structures in both here and California. The newest one is 1924. I have a fondness for historic buildings, but I also know how hard they are. The other thing I would just point out to you about the ordinance, the way it's drafted, at least that I'm reading this evening, is that the level of involvement of the Historic Preservation Commission in evaluating other things that you could do with it is laudable, but not very realistic. If the property owner cannot find something to do with a building that they own and they can't find the resources to do it, it's unlikely that granting the historic preservation 6 months to do that for them is unlikely. So I would just, standing here as a representative of Renew Moline, working toward both historic preservation, but also redevelopment of our community, just understand that there's a tension between these interests and really striking the right balance that will result in economic development in your community is just so key. And I think that there's a little bit of overreach in the ordinance as drafted. So I appreciate the opportunity to comment on it. And I will read it further and provide Administrator Vitas with just some more thoughts to the extent that that's useful. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment this evening, Chief? No? Okay. We'll move on to questions on the agenda. There's no changes that have been brought to my attention, although I will need to ask under executive session if there were any questions about executive session minutes that you need to ask during executive session, we can go into executive session for that. So, were there any questions? Okay, no. So that will happen next week in executive session. All right, so now we're on to our first cow agenda item, 7.1, a resolution approving the special event application for the Stunning Summer Showcase Amateur Boxing and Fundraiser event scheduled for Saturday, August 12, 2023. That's sponsored by the Stunnings Boxing Club and closing certain streets more particularly described herein to vehicular traffic. Mr. Vitas.
Yes, if I could just speak to this briefly, one of the questions that came up is, are they affiliated or a part of Mercado? The answer is no, they are independent, but Mercado has partnered with this organization in order to put on this boxing event at their location. And, at this point, I don't see that there is any reason why we would not approve the request as a special event, and only closing that portion of 12th Street, which is a part of the licensing agreement that we previously had approved at council, which is specifically the section that they had requested in the first license agreement, the renewed license agreement number 2, and as it exists in the third licensing agreement. Recognizing, of course, it cannot be closed on evenings when the Vibrant Arena is holding a regular event.
Any questions from the council? Comments? Yes, Mr. Schmidt.
I think this is what you said, Bob. I just want to make 100% sure.
Oh.
Mercado on 5th is the one granting them authority to use that part of the property that is
Correct.
not ours. So we're really just speaking to the street. They have the authority otherwise. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Hearing nothing further, all in favor?
There's no motion on the floor, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot, yeah. Thank you, excuse me. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Alderperson Timmy, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Castro. Any further comments? Yes, Mr. O'Brien.
I'm just remembering back to 2 weeks ago when the chief told us that it's not a good idea to close off streets for events, but here we are, week 2, we're closing off the street for another event, so.
Right, and last week I mentioned that we will be taking up all those issues of street closure and special events, policies updates in future meetings. Anything else? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
You're opposed.
No, I said aye.
Okay, so that motion passes. All right, don't make any extraneous sounds, I'm just kidding.
That was not my control. It just came out. I'm sorry.
All right, that motion passes. We move to 8.1, informational, chapter 30, cable video service provider fee and customer protection of the Moline Code of Ordinances. Ms. Christopoulos?
Thank you, Your Honor. So in our efforts to update and review all chapters in your code, we have today both chapter 30 and 31. Taking 30 first, the shorter one, we have simply done some housekeeping and updated and conformed to statute your chapter 30, which is addresses the cable fee for non-franchise businesses. So this would not be for either Metronet, which does not have a franchise agreement, but they also do not provide cable at this time. It would also not apply to Mid-America, which has a franchise agreement. These are fees for other cable service providers. So, any questions on this? We made no substantive changes.
Okay. Yes, questions, Mr. Schmidt?
I recognize this is redundant to what you just said. I just want to be extra sure that any fees that are included in this section are things that they're already in place, already happening. We're not making changes to those structures.
Correct.
Right. Thank you for confirming.
Okay. That'll come back to us. If there's no further questions or comments, that'll come back to us on a council agenda, correct, for passage?
Right.
Correct.
And, all right, then we move to 8.2. An
Right.
ordinance amending chapter 31, taxation for the Moline Code of Ordinances.
So this is a bit more complicated. So in addition to, again, doing housekeeping, updating, conforming to statutes, this also contains fee changes or tax changes in certain areas. It increases the amusement tax from 5% to 10%. It increases sales tax from 1 to 1.25%. It increases the prepared food and liquor tax from 1 to 1.5%. In addition, we made some other suggestions for changes that you might have seen in the margins to streamline some definitions, to consider whether on these amusement tax in the video tax, which does not change in amount, whether you might want to allow the actual business to retain a portion of that tax in consideration for collecting it. Many communities allow for that, maybe at 1% or 1.5% for the actual business who collects it. So that is a very quick summary of the changes here. We reorganized this as well so that the taxpayer bill of rights, which is by statute, appears later in the chapter, which made more sense by format. And these fee increases were previously discussed by you at a round table.
Yes, I understand that. I appreciate the work toward cleanup. I don't quite understand why we would institute an increase before we've looked at the entire budget, and when we know that we have many competing needs. That feels out of step with where the council was at. We may have been presented with it, but that was for information and for digestion. And I'm not sure that we are at a place to make that determination now outside of the budget talks. That's my personal opinion, but it's council. I saw your hand, Mr. Schmidt.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, what she said. Okay, and what we did here was we took the recommendations and we incorporated them in this draft. And it does not have to proceed to a vote at any time soon, but you have it here for consideration. And, you know, as you go through that budget process and you address competing interests, this can be one guide for you.
So what you're, yes, Mr. Timian, go ahead.
Have the SSA boards weighed in on these increases at all?
The SSA taxes do not increase.
With the hotels?
Hotel motel tax?
Hotel
Yeah.
motel within the SSAs?
Yeah.
No, they're just located within. They're just located within the district
Yeah.
itself, but that's a separate
Right.
tax apart from what they self-impose.
As far as I know, maybe Bob, you could help me out on this.
Yeah, no, I
They-
mean, first,
yeah.
first in response to what the mayor's comment was, I would agree. I mean, this is not presented for you to adopt this evening. It's only informational, as Margaret pointed out. I think more importantly is as we go into the budget process, I believe in my last conversation with Carol, and Keith can probably verify it, that we annually review all the fees and taxes that are charged outside of our general corporate tax. In this year, it'll be in September, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct, Keith? We're not waving his head, yeah. So he's usually the one who prepares it, so that's why it's a good thing that he's sitting here. But as you know, we went around and around last year on quite a bit of these discussions. So really, as we go forward, as there's competing interest for programmatic dollars, because that's really what it comes down to, is these some of these taxes have to be used, or fees have to be used, you know, for specific purposes and not just for general purposes. So we would want to take a close look at that. You know, the hotel motel tax, we'd want to look at that, for example, in relationship to what the hotel motel taxes are in the surrounding communities. You know, I mean, I think everybody is charging at this point a similar fee, but they may not all be exact. And remember, we're competing with, you know, our hotels compete with all the other hotels for business, and ours are doing well. They're full quite a bit at a time now. So that's a good thing. When you talk about the amusement tax, again, you know, it's geared toward people specifically who take advantage of the amusements as opposed to the general population as a whole. So each one of these is unique, and I think we need to look at them uniquely as different and then you know, this gives you time to think about it, ask questions, you know, and explore these topics well before we get into September, when you will be at a table where you do need to make decisions so that we can prepare the budget.
Mr. Schmidt?
I would like to see this remaining on the CAL prior to ever touching a council agenda, to take out any changes to the tax structure and to only work on the updates in this format and in this style. Because these are conversations we're going to have, but I think those items and any proposal to increase tax or fees needs to be handled on its own with a strong memo of recommendation from our own staff and department. I mean, working it in like this is just not giving enough information to even consider it. This is my very strong feeling. Of course, I'm only one of the board, but that's where I stand on that.
I want to be very clear to the public, and this is why I think it's a little bit unfortunate it's coming this way, or that changes were made. We are not, as a whole, we are not interested in increasing fees on people. We already know that there are massive fees changes that haven't been made to stormwater, utilities, et cetera, that we have to deal with. This is, I don't want the public thinking we're already considering increases beyond what we've previously discussed. So I would tend to agree in my role as recommending things to the council. I agree with Mr. Schmidt that I would be happy to see this come back without any of those fee changes, but I think it is extremely premature to take up that topic when our primary goal that I know I stated in that roundtable or that special meeting where we talked about all these priorities was to try to maintain what we're doing versus increase burdens on folks. So, okay, is that enough direction? Does anyone disagree, have a different thought they want to share? Ms. Kostopoulos.
If I may, so we're not really proponents at this time of this. We included this as a result of roundtable discussion and as part of our update. And we brought it as an informational for this very reason.
Right.
So be clear that we're not, presuming that you just want to do this or that it's an appropriate increase.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Schmidt.
Briefly to close on that topic before my second question. I would ask in the future we not have any tax or fee increases be brought before this council that someone is not a proponent of. If we don't have someone standing up and saying, I'm standing up and saying we need this, I'm not interested in seeing it. And I think that's likely shared generally. But as the other question I had spoke to the comment on potentially diverting some of that tax to the resident businesses. I begin from a place of skeptical of adding that as something we're doing, if that's something that's being asked for. I recognize that there are places it's happening. I just would like to, learn and understand more about the pros and cons of that. Just trying to learn and understand it better.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, Mr. O'Brien.
I mean, I think the staff should give us options. I mean, we have, as the mayor stated earlier, we have a lot of things to fix in this town. And I actually appreciate this coming forward with some options on, because you're going to want to know where the money's going to come from. That's why these guys won an award, because they know where all the money's coming from and where it's going. But I think with our finance department, I think they've got a pretty good balanced view of what, the revenue we need and how to apply it. Because we're not always gonna, like with stormwater, that was way overdue. I mean, we need to put money into stormwater. no question, I think we should have put more money into stormwater, but I think it's okay to hear from staff on what some options that might be available to us are. That's all I have to
Thank
say.
you. Anyone else? Okay, hearing none, we move on to closing out the cow and meeting and moving to a regular council meeting. Pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, is there an invocation, Mr. O'Brien?
Yeah,
Okay, do you want us to? We'll stand.
you can stand if you want. I'm not a ordained minister or anything. Father, give us the knowledge to pass good decisions for the future of the people of Moline and to keep our streets safe for children and elderly. Thank you.
Okay, roll call, please.
Alderperson Murphy.
Aye. Present.
Macias. Razak.
Present.
Timian.
Present?
Finch.
Present.
O'Brien.
Present.
Castro.
Present.
Schmidt.
Present.
Your Honor, I request approval of Committee of the Whole, Council, and Executive Session minutes of July 11th, 2023, and appointments made during Committee of the Whole on July 18th, 2023, and consent agenda items 14.1 through 14.4 inclusively.
Motion to approve.
Second?
All right, roll call, please.
Was that motion by O'Brien?
I'm sorry that I should have said it. No, it was Schmidt and Timian.
Schmidt and Timian. Okay, Alderperson O'Brien.
Aye.
Castro.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Murphy.
Aye.
Razak.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Finch.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays. Motion carried.
Yep, motion carried. Thank you.
Non-consent agenda, second reading ordinances. Item number 16.1, an ordinance amending Chapter 4, Alcoholic Liquor, Article 3, Retail Licenses, Division 3, Privileges conferred by various classes of licenses, Section 4-3315, Option 2, Extended Hours, 3 a.m.
Motion to approve as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alderperson O'Brien. That was Schmidt and O'Brien.
Okay?
Discussion. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Alderperson O'Brien,
Aye.
Castro,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Murphy,
Aye.
Razak,
Aye.
Timian,
Aye.
Finch.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, and that motion carries. Item number 16.2, an ordinance amending Chapter 4, Alcoholic Liquor of the Moline Code of Ordinances, increasing the number of Class C licenses in the city at the request of HS Stores LLC, doing business as Essentials.
Move to approve?
Second.
All right, motion by Alderperson Timian, seconded by Alderperson O'Brien. Discussion? Yes, Mr. O'Brien?
As I said last week, I'm not a big proponent of expanding our liquor licensing, but we don't have a lot of development in Avenue of the Cities. I don't see any new TIFs forthcoming. Be lucky to get the one we got going through. We need the development there. The gentleman that is here tonight has put a lot of money and plans to put money into this property. So I'm gonna, I guess, go against my own rule tonight and support this.
Thank you. If there's nothing further, roll call, please.
Alderperson O'Brien,
Aye.
Castro,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Aye.
Murphy,
Aye.
Razak,
Aye.
Timian,
Aye.
Finch.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays, and that motion carries. First reading ordinances. Item number 17.1, an ordinance amending Section 8-2101, amendments to the Building Code of Division 1, Moline Building Code of Chapter 8, Buildings and Other Construction and Building Services of the City of Moline Code of Ordinances regarding the city's adopted building code and adding a new Section 25-4112, demolition of structures 50 years old or older, to Article 4, historic preservation of Chapter 25, Planning and Development, to create procedural safeguards prior to the demolition of potential landmarks.
Motion to approve.
Can you restate that as suggested?
Motion to advance the second reading.
Thank you. Second. All right, motion by Timmy and seconded by Castro. Discussion. Mr. Schmidt.
This ordinance is significantly different than what was brought forward from the Committee of the Whole meeting previously on April 25th, so it predates some people being on council, including the addition of a 6-month hold that was not included in the initial proposal, and is something that I think is just completely untenable. I think that as we look at this opportunity, you know, the purpose for this should be to allow for a short-term conversation to say, hey, is there another opportunity? Is there a place to go? And barring another opportunity, which if someone is at the point of wanting to demolish their building, I think they probably have run out their other options, generally, to then give the Historic Preservation Commission the opportunity to go or, you know, take pictures, document any structure that would be considered historic, and to do that. But as a representative of Renew Moline spoke to tonight, and I myself think that the idea of the Historic Preservation getting involved for 6 months to try and find an alternative is something that I just would not support in any form. I guess I'm curious before deciding how to move forward and what other thoughts people have, because this just had changed so significantly from what we'd seen previous.
Mr. Timian?
I had a thought about this. I understand where you're coming from, and I agree. I understand there is some weird edge case where this might be appropriate. I can't fathom it, but I understand that these scenarios exist. I was curious to know if the 180-day extension could only be activated with council approval as a second check, if that would be something to be worked through, or if that in itself is also just overreach. This is private property at the end of the day, and that still would be overreach in some regards. So I'm just spitballing that as a potential thought.
Thoughts, Mr. O'Brien?
I think you're right. It is, at the end of the day, private property. And I used to be on historic preservation back when there's a lot less history. But that's neither here nor there. But actually, I don't know if anybody here would remember the Huntoon house. That was supposedly Moline's oldest house. And there was a big back and forth with, I believe it was a church that owned the house. And one night they just brought in the bulldozers and bulldozed it down. And it's their property, so you know, that was kind of the end of it. So I think we need to support historic preservation, because I think it does make our community better and more interesting. And you know, a lot of these neighborhoods we're talking about tonight, they're in the older parts of town. Didn't hear anything about the 6th Ward there, but you know, I think it's important to preserve these older properties. But we need to do it, I guess, with a velvet glove, more or less, to try and encourage people that own these properties. And preservation, I think they still are good at that. They bring people in, and they go to the meetings and they tell them, you know, this is how you restore. You know, Alderman Potter, I know he was big into that. And I think we need to work with historic preservation to maybe, I don't know, if this ordinance is not making people's bells chime, maybe we change it around a little bit, work with preservation.
So is there amendment from anyone to change anything that's been presented so far?
I don't know, maybe
Mr. Schmidt?
table it?
I guess my first inclination is to send it back to Committee of the Whole or in Historic Preservation with comments, because it's been rewritten in a way where to just start taking bits and pieces out, there's gonna be a lot of fragmenting. Like, it's not something that we could just take out the 6-month hold. I think that the rest would hold up.
So, Ms. Kostopoulos, please tell us, which direction should the proper procedure go? Back to committee
I think you should table it and send it back to committee for additional revisions.
Okay.
Back to our own committee of the whole, or back to
Yes.
historic preservation?
Well,
Because I'd like to skip having to send it to us at a separate meeting.
I don't understand what you just said.
If I send it to committee of the whole, and then from committee of the whole have to send it back again to historic
Oh,
well,
preservation.
right, oh, okay, so I understand that, yes, send it back to the Historic Preservation Committee.
Yes, Mr. Vitas?
Just as a point of clarity, isn't that exactly what the previous city council did, which resulted in the document that is before you tonight? So what are we achieving as a council if we are sending it back to them again without very specific points requesting further clarity as opposed to just sending it back? Because I've only heard limited points discussed, and I think that would just cause ire among members of that group who meet frequently next door to my office, and I can hear them.
Mr. Schmidt?
I do not believe that we sent it back for additional comment. I believe we advanced it from committee of the whole, intending to see it in the same version it was previously.
It wasn't,
now I'm
it was an
confused.
informational, wasn't, no, it was a committee of the
I-
whole, you've
But it was
researched it
committee
April
of the whole
25th.
informational, I believe you are correct.
Right, informational. So I take the staff's point, that what is the point of sending something back without clear direction? Why would they come up with a number less than 180 when they've already said at their recent meeting that they approved this, they voted to approve this? I think you need to make an amendment for what you want, council. Ms. Kostopoulos?
Well, and if it were only the number of days, I would probably readily agree. But other person, Schmidt, you had mentioned that, several differences. So I believe that we need to know, in addition to the number of days delay, what we bring back to the HPC as recommendations. Now, we could work on that, offline,
Understood.
outside of this meeting.
I have to know if I'm okay acknowledging someone from HBC
Oh.
now to make comment, since we're not in public
Sure,
comment.
you can.
All right, please come to the mic, Mr. Tidwell.
Thank you. My name is Brandon Tidwell. I'm a member of the Historic Preservation Commission. Thank you so much for taking a moment to listen to what I have to say this evening. I understand your concerns, Alderman Schmidt, and I would just like to point out that the number of days that seems to be the concern is a threshold based upon if a property may make landmarking criteria. So that's a pretty high threshold already. There's basically 5 steps that a property has to meet, at least several of those, to be able to meet that landmarking status. So to also acknowledge the concerns of Mrs. Elias as a property owner, which I respect, the majority of properties are probably not going to qualify. The majority of what comes across the desk for the HPC for review will be sent right back to the city for probably demolition because it's not going to meet that threshold. So why does the HPC care? Well, the reason being is the intent of this is to protect properties similar to what we saw with the Belgrade happen this week, to give the HPC an opportunity to recognize a property as potentially historic, potentially landmark, to take pictures, to move forward with if the property or the property owner does not want to landmark the property, then to possibly discuss working with the property owner for salvage and retaining part of history. So although I understand the concern in the amount of days, that is a qualifier only if a property were to meet that particular threshold of landmark status. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, anything further from this council? The motion is to move it, approve it, advance it to second reading. So if there's nothing further, roll call. Is that a hand?
I'm asking for a moment as I compare the past ordinance.
Okay.
There are a lot of changes that have come through here. So I make a motion to return this to the committee of the whole for further discussion.
Okay. Is there a second? That
Was there a motion
is.
already?
Oh,
Yeah. So there was a motion to approve,
to advance.
To advance to the second reading
Right.
by Timian and Castro.
Right, but a motion to table to send back can be made at any time.
Would that be akin or no?
So did you move to table? I'm not
That's not
sure I
the word
heard
he
the word
used.
table.
No, but if I were to table it and return to, would it be that be the motion to table and return?
Yeah.
Okay, so can you?
I make a motion to table and return to the committee of the whole.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, that was seconded by Alderperson Timian, and there's no discussion on tabled items, or table motions. Roll call, please.
Alderperson O'Brien.
Aye.
Castro.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Murphy.
Aye.
Razak.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Finch.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays. The motion to table and return this item to the Committee of the Whole for further discussion passes. Carries.
Thank you very much. We move to 17.2.
Yes. Item 17.2, an ordinance amending Chapter 8, Buildings and Other Construction and Building Services of the Moline Code of Ordinances by repealing Chapter 8 in its entirety and enacting in lieu thereof one new Chapter 8 dealing with the same subject matter.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to advance to second reading.
Second.
All right, that's Schmidt and Timian. Discussion? Mr. Vitas, this is true that this is what was presented to us by Mr. Daly, minus any fee changes, because as you mentioned in our prior discussion this evening, fee changes will come to us in September.
That's correct.
Anything further, questions from the council? All right, hearing none, roll call please.
Alderperson O'Brien.
Aye.
Castro.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Aye.
Murphy.
Aye.
Razak.
Aye.
Timian.
Aye.
Finch.
Aye.
7 ayes, no nays. Motion to advance to second reading carries. That is all I have this evening, Your Honor.
All right, miscellaneous business. Have none today. We'll see you next week. Yes, Ms. Murphy.
No, I have none, Your Honor.
Mr. Razak. Mr. Timian.
Yes, Your Honor, I will be absent next week, so I hope that you all enjoy the absence. I'll be riding my bike across Iowa, so
Please
I'll-
don't die in the
I'll be
heat.
thinking of you all while
I
I'm
hear
gone.
there's like massive heat at the end of next week. So.
The end of the next week will be in Davenport, so it'll be okay. So I'll be
All right.
eating a lot of pie. So please wish me well.
Ms. Finch. Nothing, Your Honor. Mr. O'Brien.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Ms. Castro. No, Your Honor. Mr. Schmidt.
Nothing wrong.
Mr. Vitas.
Just a reminder to council that the Illinois Municipal League Conference is scheduled for the end of September. So if you have an interest and have not yet registered, please see Macy, and we will make the necessary arrangements for your attendance at the conference.
Thank you. Any other staff? Yes, Chief Galt.
I just wanted to alert the council that Tuesday, August 1st, the National Night Out Against Crime will be held for the 40th year. It is for the last several years, we have done this event in concert with East Moline as well. And so this year we'll be holding at the Ben Butterworth Parkway, 5121 Old River Drive, from 5 to 7. The good news for you this year is there's no council meeting scheduled for that, so you don't have to leave quickly. You can stay the whole time for the free, fun event. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other staff? Okay, hearing none, is there any further public comment? No, then and we don't have executive session, so I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? Second by Alderperson Finch. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned.